Well, welcome back to episode 2 of the Dudecast. I'm Nick.
I'm JD.
And we're back.
We are back.
Maybe
episode 2.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we should probably introduce some theme music.
Maybe.
So we could pause right now for it.
Yeah.
All right, that was the brand new Dudecast theme. Again, we'll edit it up, right? But
and that's all composed by you.
Yeah, that is true. Absolutely. It's that older track that I've had sitting around that never ended up getting placed anywhere. So why not use it for something, right? And played by me as well, actually. Guitars, bass, drums, whatever, and then synced.
So that's all crazy to me that you can actually go through that entire process and track it out and do it all yourself without. To me, it would have to be like a band sit down and play.
Oh, for sure. Well, the funny thing is, and I think as technology's gotten so good and cheap.
Yeah.
It used to be that if you wanted to do a recording session, you had to go to a studio in the industrial section of town that was like the size of a gigantic warehouse, and it had dedicated rooms for vocal recording and drum recording and band recording, and then you had like a producer and an engineer's assistant and a 3 or 4 assistants plus like Foley guys and mic guys and like in studio guys. Like there was a team of like 20 or 30 people that would work just for one recording session for an artist back in the day. And of course there were smaller, like if you look at Motown, it was like 1 or 2 guys, and that was about it. But you used to have all this space and all this huge equipment, and it was all processed via vacuum tubes and huge switches and whatever. And now it's all, you can set something up and record on your iPhone.
Yeah.
You just need a good microphone and some sort of interface to get the audio in there, but you can do everything. But if you break apart the process and you kind of know the steps that you would go through in a full studio situation, you can actually just break it apart and do it yourself.
Right.
Now, of course, that does mean you also you need to know how to play those instruments, at least rudimentarily. Anyway, you have to be able to play a little bit. But yeah, you can do it all yourself and you just build it. It's like building a house. Now, I will admit, like I cheat. So for like drums, for example, because I'm not a fantastic drummer, I can keep a beat and I can do a couple simple things, fills wise or whatever else. I've got like an electronic kit that I play on. Yeah. That goes into my computer. So it's all tracked digitally. And there's a MIDI map that's created instantaneously as I'm playing. So I can go in and after the fact, look at it and go, oh, well, in bar 3, I missed the hi-hat hit. I was a little too fast or I was a little too slow. So I can actually adjust it. It's called quantizing. Yeah. So I can do that and make it sound perfect. Or you, depending on how close it is, you can leave it, and then you can augment with other MIDI fills. You can buy them now, like for $50, you can go to TuneTrack and download the latest, like they don't have this one, but like you could download the latest Lars Ulrich sample pack. You know what I mean?
Which should be pretty bad drumming all the way through.
Right. Well, but you know what I mean? Like you could have your favorite drummer essentially playing on your tune, which is really cool. Yeah. And this is the modern technology now. And so it enables guys like me to create full tracks in their home studio with, basic essential, a computer, a good microphone, some sort of MIDI entry device, whether it's an electronic drum kit or a keyboard, and, a good quality guitar and an amp. Or you can even do everything software-wise, guitars, everything can be done VR. Yeah. Right? But yeah, no, it's pretty wild and a lot of fun.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
You never have to leave the basement now.
No. Well, and I mean, that's the beauty part, right? With like YouTube, and SoundCloud and other sharing services, it's really easy. You can put stuff out. There are full-time musicians making their full-time living doing YouTube stuff where they're just creating music that they love, that they're passionate about, and then filming themselves doing it or filming a video for it and releasing it. And people are buying it and supporting them on Patreon, which is, fantastic, or whatever other website that they choose to use, but it's pretty neat. Yeah It's amazing what you can do these days. How things have scaled down so much, from the past, like you said, from a warehouse to basically your phone. So I mean, well, interestingly enough, it's not just music, it's everything. You can now download apps on your phone for car repair, for bicycle repair, for obviously for video editing and that kind of stuff too. But it's gone like even into like the fitness industry in, diet and nutrition and workouts.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you've seen, but for whatever reason, I'm getting bombarded on television and with these Peloton commercials. No. Peloton's like a bike.
Okay.
Where I don't spin. I mean, that should be obvious to everybody. I don't do spin class, but that's not a very dude thing. I don't think. I don't think spin class. Dudes are hanging out at the spin.
Probably
class.
not. Although I would counter. Sorry to interrupt, but I would counter that if you're following something that you're passionate about, whether it's spin or knitting or things that aren't manly, but like whatever it happens to be, if you're following your passion,
you can make
enjoying
it manly.
Yeah, you can. But I would say that that's the dudeness of it is actually doing something that you're passionate about, no matter what other people might say about it. Anyway, that's the whole other thing. But
right.
So they're advertising.
I'll catch you there with your man bun later on.
I will never have a man bun.
What's that?
I will never.
I think you have to, bobby pin in the man bun before you go to spin class. But anyways, I get these. It's mandatory. Yeah.
Well, otherwise it gets cut up in the spinning part, right? So, but anyways, I've been bombarded with these Peloton ads. It's probably because I do a lot of cycling and it's cycling related, but it's for spin classes. And I mean, you can buy this bike and it's got a giant monitor, and essentially they just stream those classes right to your bike. So live classes right to your bike. They teach them in New York City. And these instructors are there at their gym doing these spin classes, but you basically say, I want to spin at 3:30. This person's teaching class. I show up, turn on my bike, and there you go. Wow. It's some sort of ridiculous price, but I mean, it just goes to show you that you don't even have to leave your basement to do anything, to get fit. And, if you have a time crunch, which a lot of people in this day and age do, because, definitely,
it's, a lot of people are busy, there's not so many, stay-at-home moms anymore. A lot of it's dual income families, and, people are just really grinding it out to make their living, and to fit in, fitness sometimes is a bit of a struggle. And I know that you've just got back into fitness and you just started going back to the gym.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's been a fun process. It's been, I mean, really since my accident in 04, 05, 05, I guess it was. Anyway, but it's been since then that I've really been out of fitness per se. Like I did physio and I did that whole thing so that I could be mobile again and, move and do all the things that I needed to do. But it took me out of like full on like spin class.
Right.
But I've gotten back in as of September. I bought myself a gym membership and really started actively, watching what I eat and tracking what I'm eating on a daily basis. And it sounds funny because I used to be like in your 20s, right? You can kind of get away with anything. Like I'm going to eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
And really all you have to do is like maybe stop drinking beer and eat one less cheeseburger a month or one less cheeseburger a week, and suddenly you're in great shape, right? Yeah. Whereas now, getting into 40s and it takes a little bit more work. Well, actually a lot more work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been back 2 months. I'm down 32-ish pounds.
Nice.
Which is my total fat loss. So not my actual weight. Like I started at like 250 and I'm down to like 229.5. So that's not actually 30 pounds total, but I've actually gained muscle.
Yeah.
So my total fat loss is about 30-ish pounds, and then my muscle gain has been about 10 and a half, 10 and a quarter, something like that. So my overall weight. But, when you start looking at these things, I think that's a more important measure. It's not just like weight.
Right.
Right. And I think a lot of people get too caught up going, oh, I have to hit this weird ideal number. Where they get it, I have no idea. Right. Sometimes it's men's magazines. Obviously we're talking about dude stuff, so that's what we'll talk about. But, men's health is always... I
mean, people still go on the body mass index and what's, healthy and what's not. But I mean, those are essentially, it's just a numbers table. I mean, there is some credence to it, but
for sure. But the other thing is those numbers were made up in the 50s.
Yeah.
Well, not made up, but they were researched and programmed. Yeah. In the 50s, people's diets were different. People were a different size. because of, and, I'm not one for eating organic or eating clean or non-GMO, blah, 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 but there has definitely been a rise in the amount of hormones, growth hormones, and antibiotics and things in our food out of necessity, because there's just so many more of us. We need to be able to grow the food faster, stronger, healthier, and more robust so that it will feed more people. And I think there is some credence to the fact that when you're injecting your beef with growth hormone, some of it is going to get into our system as well. And, just naturally, like, I'm bigger than my father. He was bigger than his father. Like, that's just kind of the natural progression of things. But yeah, those tables were made up in the 50s. So to look at that and go, okay, well, I'm 5'9", I should be, or 5'10", and I should be 176.2 pounds. I'm like, not at my smallest have I ever been. Well, maybe when I was in grade 7 or something. You know what I mean? I've always been a bigger guy. But yeah, where is this number coming from?
Yeah.
The really, like, and the focus on weight. So what I've been focusing on is body fat percentage, how much water I'm retaining, because everybody has a fair amount of water. I mean, you'd be surprised. And then lean mass. Yeah. And you have to have a body scan analyzer type scale. Like, it will show you your body weight, but it will also break it down for you. If you don't have one of those, I feel like you can go to the doctor and you can get it done, or they usually have them at the gym. You have to pay for like a personal fitness consultation or something. But it's important because as long as you can track those numbers, you can see how you're actually progressing, right? And you can feel good about stuff. I mean, because I find in the first week, for me anyway, in the first week or so, I lost like a drastic amount of weight because I like cut out a bunch of salt, cut out refined sugars. Right. I didn't drink beer, all these things. And I dropped like 12 pounds. I was like, holy cow. But then the week after that, it was like only like 3 pounds. And then the week after that was like about 1.5 pounds. And I was like, oh, I was really discouraged. But I was seeing my other numbers actually change. And I think, like I said, that's kind of the more important part, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's been great. I feel better. I think I look better. My wife tells me I'm smaller and she can get her arms around me when she hugs me now, which is always good. I got to buy all new pants, which is, kind of a pain, but it's kind of exciting too. It's like, oh, right on. My clothes don't fit, But, and it helps, I find, with confidence levels when you're approaching people and you're meeting new people, if you're feeling good about yourself. Yeah. Hi, my name's Nick. It's good to meet you, rather than, I'm really ashamed about my big fat gut, like that kind of thing. And not that you have to be ashamed about a gut. That's not my point, right? But for me, I didn't feel comfortable, and I was finding that, like, when I was going upstairs, I was like getting out of breath. Right. Like for a flight, I'm not talking like, 30, I'm talking like a flight of stairs to go up, into someone's home or whatever. And I'm finding I was getting winded, and that's not healthy. Yeah. And I'm not, like I said, there's different body shapes, different types. There's,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's there's always a wide variety of people, right? I mean, there are people that will just naturally be massive.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There are people that will just naturally be, well built. The guys that look like Adonis. The guys that won't be able to put on any mass no matter how much they eat. There's a wide variety of people, and I mean, it's ultimately when it comes to your fitness, I think everybody kind of realistically knows where they should be. Yeah, and and where that changes sort of throughout their life, right? And I mean, it's a process, and it's interesting because you indicated that you had an accident, and that sort of set you back. I think that's what happens later in life. I mean, I had an accident. It's over 5 years ago now. Yeah. And I put on an enormous amount of weight, and I still haven't recovered from that accident. I'm still going to physio now. So I still go on an ongoing basis right now. I'm looking at, it's sad. I'm under 50 barely, but I'm looking at hip replacement. I'm trying to avoid it, and that's why I've been going to physio. And unfortunately, because it's my hip, it stops almost everything that I normally do, which is typically running. And it's going to be hard when I finally get back to that point where I can do the things that I usually do, because it's going to be not like it was, or not like I remember it. And for people that are just sort of introduced to me in the last couple episodes, I mean, I used to fight professionally until I was 32 when I retired, and I mean, I was in phenomenal shape my entire life. And Now I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's weird for me. It's weird.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's just, but you learn to kind of, deal with it. And I mean, I'm definitely bigger now, but I still train.
Right.
I still train twice a week. I still train martial arts twice a week, although I do not train hard by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
I just go there and, kind of keep things going, keep my routine going. I don't want to get out of a routine
completely,
because that's really what does it for people.
Right.
And I mean, at some point, hopefully, you can sort of bolster that up. And I mean, I'm back in the gym as well.
Yeah.
Trying to do things lightly because I'm allowed to at this point.
Which is good. Yeah.
And we'll see what kind of difference. But it's weird, because for me, gym was always like crazy intense.
Yeah.
Like, you would go. I used to do basically 3 a days, which for anybody
3 workouts per day.
3 workouts per day.
Jesus.
So I would go in the morning.
Yeah.
I would I would run in the morning. I would put on anywhere from 4 to 10K in a day.
Yeah.
And then I would the afternoon I would do circuit training. So I would basically go. I would lift weights. And basically keep a circuit. So I would go do the weights. I would skip in between.
Right.
And you got to remember, I was a fighter, so I mean, this
right.
is
So
all
you were
conditioning to fight,
light
right?
and lean, and you're training endurance mostly.
Yeah, so
right?
it's like building up my strength, but obviously not allowing myself to rest as much,
right.
And to kind of keep my endurance up. And then of course I would go and do fight training in the evening, which would last probably about 3 hours,
right?
6 to 9, 10 o'clock,
yeah.
Depending on and I would do that 5 days a week. So
yeah,
to go from that to like 0 was like a big
Well, and so with me, what I found was, and I didn't really consciously think about it, but I was eating the same after I stopped working out and after that accident and after everything. So like I was still eating the same amount of calories, but I wasn't training or doing anything. So I found that the weight kind of piled on pretty quick. And I think people don't necessarily think about how important diet is.
Oh, it's a huge part of it.
When they're talking about training and getting in shape and whatnot.
It's a huge part of it. Just as an example, like I used to have everything was measured, everything,
right.
Everything was counted for, because when you are fighting, you have to meet a weight class.
Very
you
specific,
have to,
yeah.
You have to know when you need to cut down your calories in order to make weight, when you can start eating again, what you can and can't eat, and it gets crazy. It gets to a point where it's like that rules your life. But that's your job. Like
right.
That was my job. So I mean, it didn't bother me in the slightest.
Eat, sleep, train,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So. When I retired, when I officially retired, I went and I just like I allowed myself to do things like I eat pizza, which I never ate. I eat hamburgers, and drink,
right.
which I never did when I fought. I never drank a drop of alcohol. So all those things, automatically within months, I gained like 20 pounds, which was fine because it wasn't a bad, like really overly bad 20 pounds, and I was in phenomenal shape anyway. So it was probably where I would sit normally anyways.
Right.
But after the accident, that's where it became difficult because I became sedentary, and then I put on like 40 odd pounds. So it's
right.
like so it's always interesting, but that just goes to show you a change in diet.
Yeah.
20
Absolutely.
pounds. And I mean, I was still working out at that point really, really heavily.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just goes to show you what food intake essentially does.
Well, I think, it really is. It's so important. And I mean, even if you're not going to go to the gym, like if you're not going to work out, you're not going to, buy a weight bench and have it at home and, just do simple movements just to get your body going. But if you're looking at recomping or changing your body size, changing your body type, if nothing else, look at your diet and find out where am I getting excess calories, whether it's sugar, whether it's bread and pasta, hell, it could be too much hamburger. I mean, like usually you look at bodybuilders and things, they eat a lot of protein or whatever else, but it's usually lean protein, fish, but there's a lot of chicken. But hamburgers are tons of fat, right? So like, where can you start?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. And a lot of people just get worried and like, I don't have the money for the gym.
Yeah.
I don't have the money to eat right, blah, blah, blah. But there are always small changes that you can
And
make.
the terrible thing, and I will say this is, I eat out a lot because I'm busy. North American eating out diet is atrocious.
Yeah.
It's, and it became even more evident to me because I was just in Singapore a little over a month ago. Singapore and Malaysia, spent a month there, and when I go to places like that, I just eat whatever, and I eat wherever, and I
Yep.
just, and I try to stick to local stuff. Like I won't go seek out, where's a Kentucky Fried Chicken, where's a McDonald's. I won't
Yeah,
go do those kind of
for
things.
sure.
I mean, they have those things, throughout those countries, but definitely, I'm just like, I'm going to eat local food, and that's it. And I lost about 10 pounds in the course of that month, and I ate more food there than I ever eat here.
Yeah.
But it's what I was eating and how it was prepared, and where it came from, and how it was sourced, that made the world a difference. And I mean, it's really kind of weird. Like once you moved out of that process, it's so easy to go grab something out of the freezer, process, throw it in the oven for 45 minutes, and it's done.
Yeah.
Right. But it's all processed, and it's ultimately it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's going to have some sort of effect, and that's what I'm saying is, when I went to Asia, because none of it was processed, it was all cooked up there. It was all dirt cheap. I mean, I was eating meals for breakfast for less than $1, and it was like shrimp and these massive plates, and it's
and lots of vegetables, probably
lots of vegetables, lots of noodles. I mean, that's the other kick. Like tons of carbs.
Yeah,
but. Again, it's these guys are making these noodles. They're not, they're not.
It's
highly
flour
processed.
and water.
Yeah,
right. And that's it. And hand stretched, hand pulled, whatever. It's a huge difference. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I noticed. So for people that are new to me as well, I used to live in Japan, and I lived there for about 5 years. And this is post accident as well. But I lived there after my first year. I had shredded down, I shouldn't say shredded, but I got down to about 180, 185, and that's where I sat for about 5 years while I lived there. When I moved back to Canada, within a year, I was up to 230.
Yeah.
And nothing had really changed except my diet.
Yeah.
Was still doing the sort of the same amount of activity, the same level of movement, which wasn't a ton, but, I was going out for walks, ride my bike, like that kind of stuff. But just the diet, that changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal how different our diet is here.
And the food, I find, I didn't want to come back, to be honest. When I was there, I was like, this food is so good. The people are so nice here. It's like, I would like to hang around for a lot longer than, I did end up staying. Things are like, I have a wife, so I mean, obviously she would have been very upset if I didn't show up for like 6 months. Be like, it was cool, he went on a trip, but that's kind of not cool. And I don't think she's prepared to move to. She's not as adventurous as I am in that department, where I would uproot and just kind of go plunk myself down and live however I can live. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, I mean, it's just such a different way of living. And I mean, getting again back to food costs, like food cost here, you seem to almost get punished for wanting quality ingredients and good food, versus, a Michelina's TV dinner, which you can pay 99 cents for, and people do because they can't afford to eat, fresh greens, fresh this, get fresh fish, which doesn't exist in Alberta anyways, but
frozen,
but beef and chicken and all those things, like all those raw ingredients, it's so much more difficult. And I think it makes it hard. I mean, obviously, if you're a bodybuilder and you're watching this, you're probably like, oh well,
whatever, guys.
But for your average guy, I mean, keeping busy, working out in the gym, trying to eat right, it gets gets interesting. And I'm sure if you have a big family to feed as well, it gets more and more complicated.
Well, yeah, it'll get more and more complicated, more and more expensive. I mean, I suppose if you had to, like, if you couldn't do anything else but buy the Michelinas or I feel bad even saying, I hope we don't get sued. Yeah, nobody's going to listen to this yet. But, if all you can do is buy those processed and packaged foods, I mean, there is nutrient in it. It's not like it's garbage. But you have to be very wary of what you're eating and the calorie content. Absolutely. Just because it's a little thing like this, and that's my problem. I can't eat one of those. Right. I need like 3 or 4 because I'm a big guy. Yeah. And I need I need to feel satiated. Yeah. But when you're eating 3 or 4, you're eating 3 or 4 meals, not just these little portions. So it's that hard thing. So you have to really, I think, you really have to put your mind to tracking and keeping watch over what you're eating.
I think that's a big problem too, is that North American portions are just
huge.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you go out to eat.
I know when I immigrated here that ultimately at the end of the day, I was looking at stuff. I'm like, I can't believe this.
Yeah.
UK is a little bit different, with portion sizing. Eating out is a lot more expensive.
Right.
You come here and they just pile it on, and especially, with things like supersizing.
Yep.
Super Size Me, that movie that came out that, it kind of made people aware of what was going on. But I mean, that's a real thing. And again, sort of accessibility to things like fast food. And a lot of times when you don't have a lot of money, that's the easy choice. It's like I can buy a hamburger for $2, or I can get I think they have value meals for under $5.
Yeah, exactly. $2.99 or something.
So I mean, it's easy, right? Especially when you're counting your money, rather than going to like somewhere like Chopped Leaf and getting yourself a good salad with a little bit of chicken, and then you're walking out of there $15 poor. It's kind of like, really? And again, it comes down to ingredients tend to be very expensive in North America for whatever reason.
Well, and it's interesting because I've one of the things that I've been doing, part of this body recomp that I'm going through, and one of the things I wanted to be very cognizant of is, especially now sort of being off social media and less connected with people, I find that I am going out to bars or pubs or whatnot a little bit more than I used to, actually, which is cool because I'm actually connecting with people one-on-one. But I'm not ordering fries. Yeah. And I'll get a salad, or I'll get a burger or whatever, or I'll get the burger, but I'll only eat half of the bun. Like I'll do it kind of open faced or whatever. And I wanted to make sure that my diet was set up such that I wasn't denying myself anything. Yeah. So one of the things that I've been using is this app. It's called My Plate. And it allows you to, you can put in your food that you're eating. Like if you actually know the calories, you can just put it in. Or if you're buying pre-made stuff at the store and it's everything, it's not just like TV dinners and stuff. It's like anything with a barcode you can scan, and it will tell you what the calories are, how much fat, how much carbs, how much protein. And you just track. And, the biggest thing that I've been doing is just eating for the body that I want, not the body that I have. Right. So I'm automatically creating a caloric deficit, and I'm automatically losing. Now I'm not going crazy. I've not cut it down. So to give you an idea, at 250, to maintain that, you need to eat about 2,900 calories a day. Right. Yeah. So I want to be 220. So I'm eating 2,200 calories a day. It's 22.9, I think, something like that. I could pull the app out, but I don't feel like doing that right now. But so automatically you create that calorie deficit, and naturally your body will change because you're eating a little bit less. But I'm not feeling like I'm denying myself anything, because I am still eating like a healthy amount of fat. I'm still eating carbs. I'm still eating protein. My protein's a little bit higher than it used to be. I'm supplementing with like whey protein, and I found this other stuff. It's called Carnivore. It's made by Muscle Lab or Muscle Farm, PHARM, and it's beef isolate, bioengineered beef isolate. Because
that just sounds disgusting.
Well, you know what? It sounds disgusting, but it's actually delicious. Yeah. It's really rich, chocolatey, delicious, like shake flavor.
See, I'm gonna talk about this for 1 minute. This is one thing that I have never understood about the bodybuilding industry. And I mean, I used to, eat wheys and all that kind of stuff, because you got to keep, especially again, fighting, you got to keep, certain amount of protein in there. You got to build body mass. You don't want to, have that caloric deficit that you're not gaining and all that kind of stuff. But the need to make these things, so it's like chocolate, everything's like triple chocolate or quadruple chocolate. It's like, what are you trying to torture yourselves? Like, it doesn't taste like chocolate for one most of the time. I've had some whey powders that are absolutely awful, like like strawberry. It's like, if those are strawberries, I hate strawberries. And I love strawberries. It's just, they kind of go after the things that you would crave and make them taste terrible. I don't know if it's like a psychological thing. It's like, if you eat it and you tell yourself that that's actually strawberry, you'll never eat another strawberry in your life.
I think if you can kind of get a similar flavor, like chocolate's a big one for me, because like I don't have a huge sweet tooth, but I love to eat chocolate. The problem with chocolate is, if you're buying high quality chocolate, you're also buying like one square, let's call it 5 grams. You're basically eating 4.5 grams of fat. It's not great for you. So if you can have something that is good for you, so that there's no sugar, no carbs, you're getting your extra protein in to make sure that you're meeting your macro goals, but it tastes kind of like chocolate, then you're feeling good. I don't know. It's weird. The beef stuff actually tastes really chocolatey. It's got cocoa in it. As it's not like it's not a flavoring. It actually is cocoa. It's listed on the thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, tastes really good, but it gives me the worst gas.
Yeah.
Like so bad, I don't even like it.
Yeah.
Which I know is kind of a funny thing to say, but I mean, come on, it's, Austin Powers, right? Everybody loves their own brand, fat bastard, right? But yeah, no, it'll clear a room. Like it's brutal. So like I've bought this, but I'm like, yeah, no, I need to cut it with like my other way. But yeah, again, you bring up an interesting point. It's like these fake flavorings, and that's what a lot of our processed food is anyway. People, I think, forget what real food tastes like. And if you look at guys like Kai Green, guys like Jay Cutler, two of the really kind of big names in like real size mass monster bodybuilder guys, neither of those guys supplement with any protein. Or any other, I'm sure they take vitamins and whatever else, but they're very adamant about eating a whole food diet and eating from natural sources.
So the exact opposite of Terry Crews.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Terry Crews, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Right? He was going through his diet once and he was like, I don't eat. He's like, he like starves himself.
Right.
And then he's got like pills and pills and pills, like this vitamin and this vitamin, which I mean, obviously it's an effective way to do it. But I mean, to me, it's like, it can't be healthy overall, right?
Yeah.
It's it just can't be good for you.
Yeah.
I know that when I used to train, I had a trainer once upon a time, and it kind of stuck through me all the way through my fighting career. He was a physical fitness guy, and he was also a dietitian. And he's like, you don't need to take the whey powders. He's like, he's like, you're just throwing away your money. He goes, if you eat properly, you're going to do so much better. And I mean, for a lot of it, I would do that, but I mean, cutting weight is extremely brutal, for anybody that's ever done it. So I mean, there were times that I basically cheated from that. That's when I would get into the whey powders and stuff like that, because I was just like, I'm not going to eat physical food because, and I don't want this to have a really negative effect, because I mean, a lot of times I fought at 165 pounds. I walked around at about 185, 190.
That's a hard cut.
Yeah, it's
when I
but you're lean. But I mean, the truth of the matter is when you step into the ring, you're not at 165 pounds anymore. You're back up. I'd be back up to usually 175. So yeah.
But yeah, you'd be back kind of where you'd want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, when I wrestled in high school and university, it was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
What you wanted to do is train and be your walking around weight at for me, I was, I think I was 220.
Yeah.
So I was wrestling what they call the unlimited category. So I'd be wrestling guys that were like 400 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do is cut down below 210.
Yeah.
Right. For weigh-ins and whatnot. And then I'd be wrestling at the top of the heavyweight
class.
Right.
And that's always the kind of
the
key
goal.
Of it. Like I would sit around, like I said, I would cut down to 165. I would weigh in at 160, 165 on the nose, or like 0.1 underneath.
Yeah.
I'd been sitting in a sauna room in a sauna suit for half. I was like just sweating it out.
That last week of cut before the weigh-ins, that's the worst.
Well, the last few hours too.
I mean, a few hours, yeah.
And it's bouncing back from those as well. Like, I mean, there is definitely a point where you can cut too much weight in fight sport. Whereas if you become completely depleted and you're going to get in the ring and you're not going to have the energy, you're not going to have the strength, and you're going to be gassed already.
Yep.
And it happens to guys all the time because it's too aggressive a cut. You have to know exactly where you sort of fit best in that. And I mean, I had it down to a science for a long time, and then just, jump in, jump out, jump in. You know, it's kind of, how I went about things. And it's you got to be careful with that stuff too, because, when you sweat out that much, you got to, replenish your electrolytes. Or you're playing a dangerous game sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I have I've met a few people through the gym now that are like competitive bodybuilders, and in the bulking phase, when you're just eating as much as you want and whatever else, no problems. But when you start cutting, they're like, I'm on the rice, broccoli, and chicken diet. That seems to be like the three things that are like safe for a lot of bodybuilders. And for some reason they think that that's all that they can eat. But, you forget that, especially if you're going to go into a competition, for example. So basically you're looking for the fullest muscle bellies, the largest, roundest, most desirable muscle look. But if you've not been eating carbs for 6 months, your body's completely depleted and that muscle's going to be flat.
Yeah.
You actually need those carbohydrates to fill that out to help your muscle fiber retain
and that'll be
some
the
water.
rice portion of the
equation. Little bit, but you also then, as you said, like electrolytes, you need some potassium, you need salt. This fella I was talking to the other day, he was having a shitty workout, really, really bad workout and whatever. And we were just chatting because he was spotting me or something. He's like, yeah, I just got no strength today, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what have you been eating? And it was the rice, broccoli and chicken diet. And I was like, you've not had any other like pasta or salad, or have you had any like omega fatty acids like fish?
Yeah.
And have you had any salt lately? He's like, no. I was like, eat some salt. I bet you feel better. A couple days later, I saw him again. He's like, yeah, you were right, man. I needed some salt. Yeah. And I had, I can't remember what else. He said, I ate some mashed potatoes or something. And, suddenly you feel so much better because you're giving your body what it needs versus just depriving yourself all the time, And I think sometimes people take it way too extreme. The other thing.
And this guy was a competitive guy?
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because like, why aren't you talking to your coach about this? Or, why doesn't your coach know this? And one of the things that it's interesting that you mentioned about your trainer talking about don't bother wasting your money with like whey proteins and stuff like that. I would agree 100%. If you're looking to gain mass, size, strength, I think it's a good tool to use to supplement your diet, which is what it is, a supplement. Yeah. And that's how I'm using it, because I don't eat, I physically can't eat enough raw food to get the amount of protein that I want in a day to get where I'm at, because I want to keep my lean mass but cut my fat down. Yeah. But the thing that they don't tell you in the fitness magazines, the fitness blogs, the YouTube videos, whatever else, all those guys and gals, they're all taking steroids. Yeah. They're all on massive amounts of roids. Maybe not at that moment of the picture, but they are. Yeah. Guaranteed. And coupled with the fact that they have good genetics to begin with, because they're good looking people, they're symmetrical, their muscle bellies are big and full. There's a certain type of person that can be a fitness model, and there's a certain type of person that can't be. And you cannot overcome your genetics. But past a certain point, you need the help of those performance enhancing drugs. And it's this hush-hush thing in the industry. But if you listen to, and I'll quote the Joe Rogan podcast here, I'll talk about it, because Dorian Yates was on, who was a 6-time Mr. Olympia. They called him the Shadow, just a massive dude, like the biggest, thickest, strongest Mr. Olympia, possibly other than like Ronnie Coleman. Yeah. But, he talks about it and he's like, no, I was on roids. And he was completely open. He's like, I was a competitive bodybuilder. I did this. This was my job. Yeah. And I knew going into it that I would be taking steroids for this amount of time. And when I finished, I stopped. Yeah. And you look at him now, he looks like a normal 56-year-old. He's a little bigger than like your grandpa would be or your dad would be, but he's a normal sized person again, not this massive dude. Yeah. And it's just this dirty little secret that I don't think should be dirty. I'm not advocating the use of whatever, and I think they do have their place.
The problem is that, like anything, it's illegal, right?
Right. Canada's a weird gray area, but
even that, like steroids, some steroids are legal and so on and so forth. But just as a whole in sport,
right,
illegal, right? Yeah. If you're competing, they're illegal. And even for myself, there were guys that would use back when I was like fighting. You got to think there were things like that people didn't even really consider steroids, like andro. Right. So people were on andro. Creatine was another big one. Yep. All these kind of supplements. Bulgarian, whatever the hell, hormone or whatever. Whatever BSG or whatever, Bulgarian growth hormone or BGH or whatever the hell they call it. But I mean, eventually these things get whittled off. Yeah. And I mean, even myself. I mean, you would get urine tested, blood tested, all that kind of stuff all the time. I mean, even myself to help because as you notice, I mean, I did a big cut. Right. I would use ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin. Yep. Which is completely illegal. Right. Now. It was then. Ephedrine's always been illegal. Oh, okay. But, it's only when you're in your competitive phase, right? So they don't care what you do
outside of
9 months out of the year. Yeah. It's that one day that you fight, right? And leading up to it. So like any kind of thing, there is a life that these things exist in your system. Right. So I mean, really, you are, some people would say you're cheating the whole time. I don't know, you're just doing what you can. And I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but everybody, you know, at a top level is doing something along those lines, right? You know, I never used steroids and I never used anything like that. For me, it was just the extra boost to get my, you know, sort of metabolism going to cut weight. The reason that they don't allow it in competition is because they feel that extra metabolism, that extra energy is unnatural,
extra
and
heart rate,
therefore, gives you an advantage in sport, right? But I mean, I would cut that out, you know, a good month, 2 months in advance, right? You know, I would start an initial cut, and then I would do my final cut.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funnily enough because you mentioned andro. So like when I was in high school wrestling, and then after high school and university, I did a little bit of wrestling, but I transitioned into strength sports. And my coach, my trusted strength coach that was older than me and knew, you know, the industry and knew what was going on, gave me androstenedione.
Yeah.
I was on it for 3 years.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was a steroid because he said this isn't a steroid. This is a testosterone
and that was the problem with it, right? And that's how it was marketed, and it was marketed through, you know, all these, you know, health food supplement places that exist. I mean, you could go to GNC and you could buy a tub of it like this for $100 and eat it, like you said, for years. Yeah, you know, and that's, you know, one of, I guess, probably the problems with the health industry and, you know, sort of the unrealistic expectations and stuff, that you are essentially a guinea pig at times for that industry, because they'll just put stuff out. They're like, hey, this works really well in our tests, which are very small tests, test groups, does very, very well. They have no long-term study on health effect. They don't even know, and they don't care because really they're after your money. You know, and if it hadn't have been for Mark McGuire, they probably never would have outlawed that. I mean, they would have eventually. They would have found it, but I mean, it's a steroid. Yeah. And he was probably the most famous one that got caught using it, Mr. 102 home runs or however many it was. And he was openly on it.
Yeah, he was openly on it.
I remember him being in Muscle and Fitness on the cover. He was talking about it.
And so was I. I was like, oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm on andro, no problem, blah, blah, blah. And at that time, it wasn't illegal because they hadn't classed it as such yet. It wasn't not a controlled narcotic, but a controlled substance. Yeah. So it wasn't an issue. So they would have tested me and I would have been positive for it, but it wasn't illegal at that time. It changed, I think, about 99, maybe 2000. Yeah.
The issue with the testing, though, is that as far as I know, it groups stuff. So andro would actually probably give you a positive test at some point, because it would fall in that, you know, sort of range of hormones that are doing it. You know, it's and some of these tests, you know, are super sensitive, and you know,
and others are not as good.
Canadian, you know, example is Silken Lawman, the rower. She got caught because she was using a Dristan nasal list because she had a congestion that had ephedrine to help open up the thing, and therefore she got basically busted for that. So I mean, it's, you know, it's crazy, and you have to be careful in sports too. That when you go into a place like GNC and you buy stuff, you got to read the label. You got to know what's in that product, because I know guys that honestly thought they weren't doing anything wrong. They were buying supplements from places like GNC or, you know, Popeyes or wherever, and they were utilizing it. And I mean, you know, a lot of the guys that work there, you know, they can help you get bigger or achieve your goals, but they don't necessarily know that, you know, in the spectrum of this drug test that you're going because you're, you know, an Olympic athlete or you're a national athlete or whatever association you're a part of, that you're going to, you know, explode off the charts and, you know, using a performance enhancing drug.
And I mean, not to mention you're talking like possible long-term health effects from something like that, because I mean, if you look at most guys, like in terms of the bodybuilding industry, and gals too that do it, they cycle, right? So they'll do 8 weeks, 10 weeks, or 12 weeks, sometimes maybe longer, of the substance to help them grow, and then they'll stop, and then they'll have that recovery period. Yeah. But you look at something like that, like the andro, I was on for 3 years. I felt great. I never got sick. I had tons of stamina. I was bigger than I'd ever been. I was stronger than I'd ever been. And I just felt great. Yeah. But then you come off it and suddenly you crash. Yeah. You know, and God knows what kind of damage I did to my liver. The interesting thing about the liver, though, is it actually heals itself. You can regrow your liver. So by now, I'm sure my liver's fine. Yeah. But, you know, it's kind of a scary thing when you think about it. Nuts. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up too, I saw this when I started doing my health journey 2 months ago, I saw this cool TED Talk, and maybe I'll post a link because we can do that in the description of the podcast, right? I think you can post links to things. Sure. I'll figure it out. But there's a cool TED Talk, and it's basically what it says is, if your personal trainer can't answer this question, get a new personal trainer.
Yeah.
And I'll pose this to you. So what happens to fat in your body?
What happens to it?
Yeah, like when you say I want to lose fat or I want to lose weight, I want to burn fat, like where does the fat go?
It's got to be absorbed into your system, and then it's got to be absorbed, right? It's got to be, well, it's consumed, so I'm going to assume that it's being consumed itself.
Partially,
yeah.
But where does it go?
It's got to be digested through your...
So this is the common misconception, right? Is that people think that it's being burned as fuel, which is kind of correct, but kind of not, because there's nothing in your body, like nothing burns, obviously. And it's not necessarily being consumed because you're not eating it. Like your system, you put things in.
When I say burn, I mean it's being utilized to supply energy to whatever you need, right? Because typically you hit that half-hour mark, right? Especially if you're doing things like cardio. What you have consumed, you will burn off in the first half hour of your cardio, right? So you'll utilize that as a fuel source. Once you hit about the 30-minute mark and go beyond that, then it switches
into
supply.
Reserves. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a reserve supply, absolutely. But I think the interesting thing that he's trying to get across is that it's basically a chemical process.
Yeah.
So when your body converts fat to fuel, does it do it directly? Yeah, sure. But how does it do it? So it's expelled as two things when you are getting rid of fat, because there's three things. People say I want to lose weight or lose fat. You can only do that if you actually have liposuction, because you can't reduce the number of fat cells that you have in your body. You can only shrink them. Right. The storage size, the capacity can become smaller, but you still have the same amount of cells unless you physically remove them. So what happens to the fat in your body? It leaves your body as two things: water and carbon dioxide. So you literally breathe it out, and then you excrete it through urine and through sweat. And those are the only two things that actually take the fat and remove. That's what happens to the substance. That's why when you wake up in the morning, you're typically, if you're if your metabolism is in relatively good shape, when you wake up in the morning, you will be anywhere between 2 and 8 pounds lighter than when you went to bed. Which I mean, it blew my mind. I never really thought about that. And so the whole point about that, and I guess what I'm trying to do is kind of get to a wrap up, is keep moving and keep breathing. And those are really, at the end of the day, the two most important things, I think, for health and fitness. All the rest of it is incendiary, or is secondary.
I would agree. It's you've got to keep moving. It's another example, before we wrap up here, is that when I get up in the morning, like I said, I had a severe accident. I fell 75 feet. I got airlifted off. They thought I was dead. Yada yada yada. Boring.
Well, maybe we'll dedicate a whole podcast to that, because it is. Life stories, I think, are interesting to share.
But at the end of the day, when I get up in the morning, my wife, she'll tell you that I walk around hunched over I'm really stiff and all that kind of stuff, and I feel awful. But I get going. Once I get going and once I get moving and I'm heated up, it's not so bad. And it's kind of that thing. If you stop, you're done. Like you're going to seize basically, right? I mean, even in the process of sleeping overnight, I'll be limber when I go to bed, but when I get up, it's a different thing. And you just got to keep on moving. And I mean, for myself, I'm going through, like I said, I've been months and months of physio, already. Like, I mean, this last go round for my hip has been 6 months already. And, I've still got a long way to go before, we make some decisions. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm still trying, still moving. I'm nowhere near, the shape that I used to be and all that kind of stuff. But you can't just give up. Is kind of my point. Is you just, every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
And it's making those positive changes that's going to fuel you moving forward. And you should never feel like you can always be better tomorrow than you are today.
Absolutely.
It's that easy, really. You can do one thing, one little thing. You can change. It's like, I'm just not going to eat that one cookie because I have 10, you eat 9, you're still probably better off.
Absolutely. There's that great Ricky Gervais comedy special where he's talking about the supersized lady in Britain, and she eats 10 pie and chips a day.
Yeah.
And she says, well, I can't do anything else. I can't lose the weight. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, how about just cut out 1 pie and chips?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Do something, start something.
Yeah.
A lot of it's here too, right?
Yeah.
Diet is so important. Sure, exercise is important, but it really starts with your mentality of, I want to be healthy. I want to keep moving.
Yeah.
Because, with all the shittiness that goes on, life is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's worth being here.
Oh yeah,
and
it's absolutely
keep a
worth
positive
being here.
attitude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So on that note,
keep moving forward.
Keep
live
breathing,
a happy life.
Keep smiling.
And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week.
I'm JD.
I'm Nick. See ya.
See ya.